Hi, I'm Pastor Lincoln here at Liberty Christian Fellowship in London. I'm excited to share with you something that's going on right here at Liberty Christian Fellowship. I want to first take you to 1968 in the Hebrides areas of Scotland. God's presence reportedly came down so tangibly, so indisputably, everybody felt it. Reports say across the city, across the town, in the parks, in pubs, in churches, on the streets, people came to a standstill for a season that lasted months and turned the spiritual environment of the Hebrides area, and young people turned to God, and entire hundreds of people were swept into new living relationship with God because they tangibly experienced the presence of God. Not because they were looking for it, it's because a small group of people fell on their faces and asked God to show up in Scotland. Our hunger here at Liberty Christian Fellowship is to see such events become commonplace, especially in these end times. Right across the United Kingdom, across the world, here in London where we are, there is a real hunger for people to meet with God in a way that is not religious or contrived or shallow. Young people, older people, everyone is hungry for genuine encounters with the spirit realm, with God, if it does exist. There is a passage in the Bible that points to such vivid encounters, away from subjectivity, away from programming or suggestion. The Bible speaks in the first book of Samuel, chapter 19, verse 18, of a story involving David the king who slew Goliath, and how Saul, who was the incumbent king at that time, set an agenda to destroy his life. And right there from verse 18 onwards, you see that King Saul sent a squad of soldiers to find David and kill him. He had himself thrown spears at him, previously trying to destroy him. And David fled under this murderous threat and ran to Samuel, who was the prophet who had anointed him earlier, at a place called Ramah. And the Bible says when he arrived, Samuel said to him, "Let us go to Naioth." Naioth becomes for us an interesting word and concept that we have developed here at Liberty Christian Fellowship as a pursuit of this tangible sense in which God can be experienced by everyday people. And right there at Naioth, the Bible says that when they arrived, they saw a group of prophets prophesying and Samuel standing as leader over them. And the Spirit of God came upon these messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. How unlikely is that? I mean, a group of soldiers, a squad arrives to arrest David. They are not coming to worship. They are not coming to pray. They are not coming to prophesy. They have an agenda and an assignment. But the presence of God at Naioth was so intense, so real, that it comes upon them and they discard their program and their project and they are swept away in this collective experience of prophecy. Now, the word prophecy there is not about people standing and telling what's going to happen in the future, but describes an ecstatic experience in which you're swept away in praise, in spontaneous speech, and many believe in even physically visible excitement. So the Bible says Saul was told that the messengers were prophesying, so he sent another group, and they also prophesied. He sent another group, and they also prophesied. Finally, he had had enough. So Saul gets up himself and heads for Ramah. And when he arrives, he asks, "Where is David and Samuel? Where can I find them?" They tell him they are at this place called Naioth. And when Saul arrives, he himself comes under this amazing, invasive, tangible presence of God. And the Bible speaks of how he strips off his clothes, falls down on the ground, and joins the party, the prophetic party. The presence of God at Naioth was so tangible, so real, so personal. And it swept away unbelief, it swept away human agenda, and people are caught up in God. This kind of experience is needed in our time. It's needed for our city. It's needed for this generation. for people to realize God can be personally experienced, and it's not about religious persuasion. Here at Liberty, we are pursuing that. We have had Naioth as a concept emerging, that we want to create Naioth type experiences, a place where people can come, pitch together, hunger for God, and bring in such a presence that for those who may just wander in, lost, separated from God, perhaps pursued by all kinds of scenarios, can experience this presence for themselves. We are holding such an event this November the 14th, that's a Friday, Saturday the 15th, and the 16th on Sunday. We want to come together and want to invite you to come along. And let us press into God and believe for such an invasion of His presence that everybody feels it. And I believe, God willing, this presence can so come down upon where we are, and we are in the Camberwell area. I hope that God's presence can mark out a perimeter that extends across Camberwell. God willing, as we press in together, this miracle can happen. And maybe we can see a visitation of God in London, as was seen in the Hebrides of Scotland. God bless you.